Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Other people may trickle in, that's fine, won't interrupt us. This is Rebecca Robinson. I'm the CPQCC Administrative Director, and you are joining us at What's New with HRIF, the final data training session for 2022 birth year here in 2021. And I am delighted that you could all join us today, and I hope you'll find it very informative and helpful. I'm sure you will. Just a couple of logistical things really quickly. All attendees are muted on entry. If you have questions, please fill them in the Q&A section. You don't have to wait until the end to do that. Go ahead and put them in and we will answer them probably mostly at the end, although we may be able to get to some during the middle. The chat function has been disabled, so it is the Q&A section that you need to use. You are going to be eligible for contact hours or CEUs through our partnership with PACLAC. Hooray, PACLAC! Thank you very much to them. However, if you are attending this as a team, like if there's one person who has signed in and there's a bunch of people in the room watching it, that's totally fine. But make a sign-in sheet, have everyone sign in and give your name and send it to info@cpqcc.org, because otherwise we're not going to know about the other people who attended, and we won't be able to put you on the eligibility list for contact hours. So just let us know who was in the room and that'll work fine. Also, the slides and webinar recording will be sent out to you after the webinar with the evaluation survey. Filling out the survey is what makes you eligible for the contact hours. So please do fill it out. The slides and webinar will also be available on the website for the rest of your team. If there was anybody who couldn't make it today or anybody you want to share it with, they will be available to the general public shortly after that time. Next slide. Our presenters today are Susan Hintz, the HRIF Medical Director, and Erica Gray, Program Manager and all-around general expert for HRIF. You could not have a better team. Next slide, please. And we'd just like to recognize the rest of the HRIF team members, also equally vital to the success and awesomeness of the HRIF project. Eileen Lowe, the software engineer, Chen-Yao Liu, our fabulous biostatistician, and Maria Jackson, our partner at the state, the Public Health Medical Officer. And with no further ado, I will turn it over to Susan.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of you joining us today. And actually, all of you are an important part of the HRIF team. So every single one of you is part of the CPQCC CCS HRIF team. So this is just an overview of the training session today. And you can see kind of the overall topics that we're going to cover. We're going to try to cover a lot. Often we really pack in a lot of information, but today we're going to try to keep things even more interesting by peppering a few little poll questions throughout the course of the webinar. So we are going to, we're going to try to launch the first poll question right now, which is kind of general. It's a lot for our interest as well. And this is the first question. How long have you been using the HRIF reporting system? And we're going to give you, a few seconds, and I get to watch the numbers here as they go. This is just really these questions. There are no right or wrong questions throughout this entire process. We are just trying to understand the variety of different folks who are joining today, and also, try to make sure that we are giving enough effort to you, and maybe even allow us to highlight certain things as we go along. Okay, so we're get that answer in if you haven't had a chance to yet. We're just going to do 5 more seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to end the poll and share the results, which shows that about a little bit more than half of you responded, but only a few have no access, and most have 1 to 2, or most really have 3 to 4 years. So that's really helpful for us to understand. Hopefully somebody got a screenshot of that, because I don't know that I can save it. See, I'm learning as we go along. Okay. So the next section that we're going to talk about today is really just program and database access. I'm going to give some overall review of the program, but then talk about getting access, which it sounds like most of you actually have, but there's a lot of reason why we want to reiterate and reinvigorate access. So overall, just as a reminder, we are very lucky in the state of California with the California Children's Services that way back in the late 1970s, our CCS recognized the importance of follow-up for NICU graduates, and they launched a statewide program at that time, which was called the NICU follow-up program, that provided follow-up care and diagnostic services to infants discharged from the NICU. And there were lots of changes over that time, obviously the state growing, the complexity of cases getting larger, the fact that CPQCC expanded, and there was a NICU population-based data set. And so it was in about 2006 that CCS reached out to CPQCC, and that together we created a multi-stakeholder group to kind of completely restructure high-risk infant follow-up for the state of California in partnership with the CCS. And that CPQCC CCS high-risk infant follow-up QCI was launched in 2010. Again, there is a program letter that we'll refer to many times in the next few slides, but we'll highlight where you can get access to that. But this covered a number of diagnostic services that are listed in that program letter that our CCS supported. So what was the goal of our overall overhaul of the NICU follow-up program? And first, we really needed to completely clarify eligibility and overhaul the visits, which hadn't really seen a big revision for many years. We needed to create a new infrastructure for consistent care for HRIF patients. And that included, with the CCS's partnership, completely having a definitely web-based system, both for data entry as well as online tools and resources to support teams for real-time case management. Our goal was really to allow sites as well as the state to identify challenges and barriers and gaps, and especially for the sites to be able to target areas of improvement, but also for this to be a support structure for overall statewide quality and process improvement. And all of us, everybody throughout the state, really wanted to be able to better understand this NICU to childhood trajectory and to better understand this continuum of care. And so that was one of our main goals as well, by linking to the CPQCC. And we've been able to achieve that with all of your help over the years. And as you can see here by the numbers, starting with about 500,000 births a year, a little bit less than that, that is connected to us through our partner sister CMQCC, but also through acute transports, all the member hospitals on the NICU and high-risk infant follow-up clinics, and the 18,000 NICU admits, and now 9,000 infants that are registered to high-risk infant follow-up annually. This is just another reminder of the program letter, and this is kind of an overview of who we serve in high-risk infant follow-up. And as you can see, this small baby eligibility, as all of you know, is pretty clear. Less than or equal to 1,500 grams, so a VLBW baby, or a birth gestational age, an estimated gestational age of less than 32 weeks. There are a number of medical eligibility options for big babies, and this is just very high-level review of that. That includes neurologic issues, being placed on ECMO, nitric oxide, or other pulmonary vasodilators, and a number of others, which are outlined and better specified in the program letter. We also have on the CPQCC website basically a tool to allow you to kind of check without going through the pages of the program letter as to whether this child is likely to be eligible. And I'm going to get to kind of where is all of this located a little bit later, but this is under follow-up. You don't even really need to be have access to be able to see this, and this will take you to kind of an algorithm that provides some guidance as to whether the child is HRIF eligible. There are a number of other issues that are covered in the program letter that are very, very critical, and that the CCS has underscored, and that is that the NICU referral requirements are outlined in that, and that each CCS approved NICU must have an organized high-risk infant follow-up program or an agreement with a high-risk infant follow-up program, and specifying that it is the responsibility of the discharging to home CCS NICU or hospital, or the last CCS NICU or hospital providing care, to make sure that that referral is made. The NICU referral process is also specified in the program letter, and that includes completing a referral registration form that's part of the forms and the reporting system that is part of HRIF, submitting a SAR or a service authorization request to the CCS office, and also sending a copy of the child's discharge summary to the HRIF clinic to which one refers. And again, all of this information is outlined in the high-risk infant follow-up program letter. So the HRIF visits, in terms of the number and timing, this is just a reminder for almost all of you that the high-risk infant follow-up program provides for 3 standard or core visits, and those are outlined there as standard visit 1, 2, and 3, with the guidance for age or corrected age at follow-up shown here. We also want to note that through really proactive action by our CCS colleagues and partners, the CCS extended support for HRIF visits beyond that 36 months to 42 months due to the COVID crisis. That will end in December 2021, but that was a much needed and very appreciated extension. Also of note, there are additional visits that are covered by the CCS, and there are separate forms that are part of the HRIF reporting system for those additional visits. So what are the visits? What do they consist of? As all of you know, that the HRIF visit, most people think of when they read follow-up studies, they think of as neurosensory, neurodevelopmental outcomes. But as you know, we as a state really recognize that that follow-up visit is really much more. So we gain information about hospitalization, surgeries, medications, and equipment, as well as the medical and special services that are being used, and especially to what services you as an HRIF team are referring to those patients to that have not been referred to those services before, thereby kind of underscoring the importance of your work as an HRIF team, because without you, it may have been either very, very delayed or not done at all to get those referrals. We also collect information about early intervention, whether they have it, whether they're referred to it, medical therapy program, and also, very importantly, concerns and resource challenges that families are facing. And we'll talk about some of these reports a little bit later. Again, the CCS has designated high-risk infant follow-up clinics as CCS special care centers, and with that comes some special requirements, and that includes having an HRIF program medical director, as well as access to and integration of a number of specialists, including coordinators and social workers and others. And each of these obviously may be reimbursed for their diagnostic services per the CCS. The HRIF reporting requirements are also actually specified in the program letter, and that includes the coordinator's responsibility for ensuring that data is collected, knowing that many of you are coordinators that are on this call right now. You know this very well, which includes coordination of the collection and collation and reporting of the data, as well as other issues that are dealt with in different ways in different clinics, including reviewing and sharing the results of the reports with HRIF and NICU teams, participating in program evaluation, and also providing the data and information for the CCS HRIF program evaluation that is required. So again, where can I find all of this stuff? So we're going to talk about getting access to the system, but we just want to point out that you can get access to a lot of this information and a lot of tools and resources, even if you don't have access. And so you go to the website, cpqcc.org. Basically, everything is under that umbrella. And then you can go to follow up and click on resources, which then unrolls with a lot of different options that you can click on and get information about. So that includes this medical eligibility algorithm, as well as a lot of CCS documents, including the program letter and a number of other criteria, clarification notifications and letters. And then, of course, actually publicly available are the manuals and forms, both for the CPQCC CCS HRIF and also for CPQCC. So now kind of what is the structure and what is sort of the progress that you have all participated in? Well, this is just an overview showing that there are about 123, maybe not at this moment, but 123 CCS NICUs, 67 with HRIF clinics. It shows you the breakdown here of the NICUs and also of the HRIF clinics. And then there are 56 referring CCS NICUs that are shown here that are community and intermediate. So a very big population-based program with information that's available and that to all of you and that you participate in. So looking at, even though we said that our real launch was 2010, we really started, sort of in our, I don't know, almost like beta phase in 2009. So since that time, through October 2021, more than 100,000 high-risk infants have been registered and referred statewide, which is amazing. And it is all due to all of you that are on the call, as well as our CCS partners. And of course, to Erica Gray, who is the most important person. This shows you a breakdown of the standard visits that you've all performed, the additional visits. And I think it's really important for us to remember that even though many people around the state, around the country, around the world may think of high-risk infants only as premature infants, we really highlight every time that we talk together the fact that only about half of the patients who are referred to high-risk infant follow-up are actually BLBW infants. So there are a lot of high-risk term and near-term babies, as you all know, that also benefit from these services. But just to give you an idea, very, very extremely preterm infants, less than 26 weeks, in our system, again, thanks to your referrals, we have 7,500 patients around that gestational age. So you can see a fairly steady uptrend. And if we went back even one more year, it was lower than that, to about 9,000 referrals a year, again, through some quality improvement interventions that have been launched locally and across the state. There has been a big uptick, which is, of course, beneficial to our patients. And again, thanks to all of you. So how do you gain access to the reporting system? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the requirements for access. It seems like there is a lot of requirements and a lot of areas of basically security for HRIF, but all of that is for a very good reason. The basic first two things is that your hospital must have a CCS approved NICU or HRIF program, and you have to be listed in the member directory. Those two things are pretty easy to tick off the boxes. And if you don't meet those qualifications, obviously an authorized user has to request access on your behalf. Just as an aside, and we'll get to this a little bit later, many users ask if they can get HRIF reporting system access at home, which you can, but you do need to go through a system whereby you have a virtual private network that allows you to basically utilize your hospital's portal or IP addresses, so that our system knows who you are and that those IP addresses have been approved by our system. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically, to do that, you really need to talk with your institution. We can't, sort of create the VPN for you, but that's something that your hospital's IT group can help you with. So the requirements for access, and we're going to show you where this lives. This isn't meant for you to memorize this all, but basically there are quite a few requirements for access, but it's pretty easy to fill this out. Some of the main issues that folks, kind of come to the question and may not be prepared for are that, as I said, for number 8, you need to have identified with your hospital your public IP addresses or the range of public IP addresses that your hospital uses, again, so that we can, on our side, indicate that those are okay for someone who's dialing in from those IP addresses to access our portal. You also need to have a user account, and this is shown here for different types of users, and different types of users are identified, but you might be more than one type of user. So this is all possible to do through submitting a help ticket through www.cpqcchelp.org. And then we'll also show you some other sort of ways to get there if you don't exactly know how to get there. As I said before, it does seem like there are many layers of security. That is for the security of our patients, for the security of you and your hospital, and the security of CPQCC. So we really, in the HRIF, have even more layers of security than I think than the NICU does, but the NICU data set does. But in any case, you need to have obtained a user account. So there's one layer in that you've done that, and that is a password protected entry. You, as I said, need to have supplied your IP addresses or the range of IP addresses through the help of your hospital IT group. Again, you can then access through home through this virtual private network. But again, your hospital computer group or IT group is going to need to help you. And then you need to have another layer, which is Duo Secure, which is basically usually on your phone. And we'll show you a picture of that. But after you've gotten through all of that, it's basically something that pings you and says, do you really want to go in there, or is this really you? And so it's multiple layers of security. So where can you find all of this? Again, you can go to the website. You don't need to have even access to get here. You go again to data resources. And in data resources, you can go to this help desk actually, and you can click on that. It's a live link. And what you'll see on that is a bunch of how can we help you sort of questions. And you can go from there to how do I get access? And everything that we just went through is listed here. So again, not to put too fine a point on it, this is the help ticket number or email that you can submit. But this lovely individual, Erica Gray, program manager, is where all help tickets end up living when it comes to HRIF. So she is the one who knows everything about getting access, and she provides personalized care for every single person. So we're now moving on to how it looks when you actually log on. So what I showed you before is clicking down there to follow up. What I'm showing you here is once you've got all these wonderful entry passes, you will click on HRIF. You will get this screen that looks like this and put your registered email address and your password in there. The system will know if you are dialing in from the right place. That shows you how old I am, but if you're webbing in from the right place, it will recognize you. And then you will get this. You will also have to go through this Duo Secure situation where you are getting basically a push saying, do you really want to let this person in? Is this really you? And then you will finally be in the system, and we will get to show you the beauty of all the things that you get with the system as we go through here. So Erica, I think I'm handing it over to you. So I am going to exit. I'm going to stop sharing, and then it's all on you.
Okay, I believe I am ready to go. So, okay, most importantly, what we're talking about right now is the 2022 database changes. So to go over our referral registration form, or RR form, I wanted to highlight that we are adding 6 new required fields, and those are highlighted in yellow. So there will be a total of 17 required fields now for in order for you to save your online record. So infant's ethnicity, infant's race, birth mother's ethnicity and race, insurance, and primary language spoken at home. I always like to highlight here that, in situations where you're unable to obtain that information to complete the referral registration form due to maybe, the infant expired, or maybe it wasn't captured somewhere in the information. And the reason why, you're not going to even follow that patient, for instance, then you are able to check unable to complete form. And then you just have to document a client not seen form to indicate why the patient will not be seen in HRIF. So here are some of the changes for the referral registration form. So we are adding 6 new language options to primary and secondary language spoken at home. So Hindi, Japanese, mixed text, Punjabi, Thai, and other described, which will have a text field. So if there's something else that we don't have, you have the capability to enter that information in the other field. Under medical eligibility profile, we will be adding a text field to the other problems that could result in neurologic abnormalities. So you will notice that if you check that, you would then have a text field to have to enter that information of what that other problem could be, or what the other problem is. To review the standard visit form, as Susan had stated earlier before, there are 3 standard core visits at recommended time periods. And I just wanted to highlight that on the visit number 3, that a developmental test must be performed at that final and last visit. Also, to indicate there are 8 required fields in order to save the online form, and those are listed below. There isn't any new changes to that, so you guys should all be familiar with those 8 required items. Of course, you can save the form as long as you have those 8 fields entered, and then you can recall the standard visit form at a later date to make any modifications or changes to the form itself. To align with the changes that we are making on the referral registration form for the language, we are now adding those 6 additional language options to the interpreter used. So down here, you'll notice I'm just showing what it's going to look like on the new standard visit form. Under interval medical assessment, we are adding a new category, oxygen supplies. So you will select oxygen supply if the infant child has been using a nasal cannula or oxygen take since NICU discharge or the last visit. Under developmental core visit assessment, we will be adding ages and stages questionnaire number 3, or ASQ3, as one of the options. So below is just a screenshot of what it will look like. And so what we're having you capture for each domain is the range or the zone. So whether they were on schedule, monitor, or below, and then you have the 2 options, of course, for unable to assess or did not assess, to mirror with the other, to align with our other screeners and test. We will be removing pervasive developmental disorder screening test 2 from the autism spectrum screen. In addition to that, we will also be changing the hard copy form as well as the data entry, because we're going to be adding risk level for the MChat screening tool. So you can see below, you'll have the 3 screening tests. Then there's the screening results that you would select. And then the third section down here, the next section, I guess, is the MChat risk level. So you would have to select the risk level if the infant child did not pass the MChat. And then the 2 risk levels will be medium risk or high risk. Under early start, we are adding a new option called No Complete. You will select No Complete if the infant child received the service and the service is no longer required. This change is consistent with and matches with the medical and special services sections that indicated that the patient received the service or got the service and now they no longer needs it. We are making this change as well to the medical therapy program, so it's consistent to the options and mirrors the change, the additional option to those 2 service sections. Under special services, we are adding a new status choice called Receiving Increased Frequency. So you will select Receiving Increased Frequency if the infant child requires more utilization of the service. Our third form, which is the additional visit or AV form, there are no changes, so be happy about that. This is a form that, of course, that can happen before, between, and or after any of the recommended timeframes for the standard core visits. It's a short form where it only captures the date, the reason, and the disposition. And just to point out that all fields are required to save this form online. For the client not seen, there's no changes to the client not seen form. I just like to highlight that this is our capture all, anything that's going on, tracking and management type of form, and closed form, I guess you can say. You use this form for different reasons. You can use it for a no-show. You can use it if you try to, you are unable to contact a family after 3 or 5 attempts, as well as if the service was denied by the parent, or they refused the service, or insurance was denied, as well as for any transfers. So whenever a patient is going to be transferred to another HRIF clinic, you're required to do a client not seen form to document that transfer in the system. This is a short form again. It only has the date, category, reason, and disposition. And of course, all fields are required to save the online form. Now I'm going to turn this over and let Susan take over the telehealth assessments.
Okay. Erica, do you want to advance the slides, or?
Yes, I'll advance the slides.
All right. So what we're going to do is I think I can launch it from here, Erica. We've got another few poll questions. So everybody get interested. Again, this is just us. This is just for our interest and also to share with each other. And there are actually 3 questions. And I'm going to launch those, and we are then going to review them. So the first question, everybody respond. Does your clinic conduct telehealth visits? And that could be, maybe your system is Zoom, or maybe it's through Epic, or maybe it's through the Kaiser system. And then the second question is approximately what percentage of your HRIF visits are conducted by telehealth? And some of this we're kind of interested because, as you know, we sent out a serial survey around when the shutdown really started off in early 2020, kind of wondering where people are now. And the third question is, which standard visit is most frequently scheduled as a telehealth appointment. And so, there are lots of different options here. It may not be perfect, but we just wanted to try to get a little bit of an idea. So I know there are 3 questions, but we're going to try to move things along. So really only have a few more seconds to get your answers in. I see that not everybody has responded yet. So we're going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I'm going to share the results, which look like just of the people who are here anyway, that a little bit more than a third do conduct telehealth visits. And obviously, for those of you who responded none, you obviously said 0, but it looks like somewhere between 40% to very few saying 80 to 100%. And in terms of the standard visit most frequently scheduled, since some of you are saying you don't do any, that's obviously none. But it looks like for those of you who do, probably most popular answer is it might be any visit. And we may be asking more questions of all of you as time goes on about that. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And we'll just move on to the telehealth portion. So next slide is Erica. So many of you probably remember that that we talked about this a lot, again, sort of in the beginning, like around March, April, May of 2020. And for most of us, COVID really disrupted access for a lot of children for outpatient visits, but this included HRIF, and we all would say that HRIF is a really essential post-NICU service. So, what we asked from some serial surveys that we did was kind of how has COVID impacted visit care models in our statewide system? And so we did that both through the broad queries that we sent in March 2020 and then August 2020 and November 2020. But we also added a question in March 2020 about whether, just a broad question about whether telehealth had been done. And we've expanded that in 2021. So next slide. So broadly, the results of these surveys, and I'm not going to go through it in detail because we talked about this also at the kind of what's up with research in CPQCC, is that, similar to what we just discovered from that poll, is that there was great heterogeneity of HRIF program challenges during COVID, really site-specific problems, that there were differing institutional imperatives related to telehealth deployment, with some hospitals, really deploying very proactively and widely telehealth for all clinics, and some not deploying for HRIF specifically, but maybe for other clinics, and others not really deploying very much telehealth at all. There were really well-founded concerns by coordinators and medical directors and other members of the HRIF team about telehealth use for patients and families, especially whether those who had limited resources and families who, had really significant challenges were actually getting the kind of care that they needed from telehealth or were able to utilize telehealth. A lot of you also indicated, importantly, that you were concerned about the instruments or the assessments that you were using and whether they were appropriate for telehealth. But overall, I just want to say to this group especially, it was crystal clear to us from these surveys that you guys are and were completely going above and beyond to try to assure the safest and the most consistent follow through for your patients and families. So given this feedback from all of you in these surveys, we developed a multi-stakeholder interdisciplinary telehealth guidance work group that also had partnership from the CCS. Maria Hawkson was part of that group. And the goals of the group were broadly to kind of share insights and experiences throughout that group, but also to provide input for what were kind of guidance for in-person and telehealth visits, as well as develop high-level guidance to inform changes about what kind of instruments could be utilized for the standard visit. And next slide. And so again, you are able to access that guidance document that was put together by this work group that talked about telehealth optimization. There was some state level guidance for institutions, as well as discussing the expanded telehealth validated developmental assessments and screeners that we included in response to your requests as HRIF teams. And again, this document lives in the resources area, so you can have access to it whether you have access or not. And the next slide just basically reminds you what those added tests are as of now and that are upcoming. So as you can see, we added the DAISY-2, also the availability of utilizing the developmental profile 3 and 4. Although, experts indicate that sort of on the early age or the less developed age, there may not be a lot of detailed questions in that area. We also added as a screener the WIDEA, and we will be adding the Ages and Stages Questionnaire 3 beginning in January 2022, in part because of many other groups across the United States and beyond that have actually deployed that in response to telehealth questions or in response to needs for loss to follow-up, et cetera. So that will also be deployed as an option. Okay.
Okay, I'm back, everybody. Okay, so now you're going to hear a lot from me about system improvements. So I like to show this slide because to me, it just kind of lets me know, like, wow, look how far we've come from 2009 to now 2021. And so our database has been through a lot of changes. And so a lot of you who have been with us, 3+ years, probably are familiar with the changes and the cycles and all the different things that we have done. So anyway, I just like to show this slide to show our growth, I guess. What I'm going to do right now, because there were a few people that were brand new, at least within a year, to kind of go over the navigation panel and features. As you can see, when you first log in, you have a purple navigation bar at the top. You can actually click on these 3 lines to minimize the gray navigation bar. You may not have known that, but that just enlarges your screen. You have the search for HRIF ID. If you know that number, you can use this to find that. There's also a bell icon that indicates any, alerts you of any pending errors or priority cases that you may have, as well as we added the closeout checklist there. So it's available to you no matter where you are on the site or within the system. Under the user icon, you have clinic settings. So clinic settings allow you to see who has access to your site and what type of user access they have. You can update your password here or update the directory. You also have access to view in the member directory. For signing up for our newsletters or our MailChimp announcements, you have a link out to that newsletter preference document so you can sign up for CPQCC information throughout, so that way you don't miss anything like these data trainings, for instance. And then we have direct hyperlinks out to the HRIF data resources page or the help desk page, and then of course log out. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go over the gray navigation. And so a lot of you, when you first log in as a data user, you see your clinic dashboard. I will go into detail about how that dashboard is created in my later slide, as well as going over the find patient. But under pending cases, just in case you were wondering what's under there, you are able to see any type of, there's different tables, I should say. There's pending referrals. So if there are referrals that were coming in, so they're waiting for you to accept the referral registration form, they are listed here. If there are any records that are open, so open forms can be, you just haven't checked this form is closed. Checkbox, it will highlight who those records are, as well as if you have any transfers that came in within the last 6 months, they will also display in the pending cases. Registration, this is what you will click on to register a patient to complete the referral registration form for a patient being followed in your HRIF clinic. If you are a referrer user, which is you are referring a patient to any of the CCS HRIF clinics throughout the state, then you have this referrer user access. Here, you have a search of your own, so you can see what patients you referred out. You also have a pendings referral tab, which allows you to see of those that you referred out, which ones have not been accepted yet, as well as if there are referrals that were rejected. So they were referred to the HRIF clinic, but they were rejected for some reason, then they also display in the pending referrals tab. And then the new referral is the referral registration form that allows you to refer the patient to, completing the RR form and then indicating where that kid is going to be receiving their follow-up care. These are the reports that we have available to you. And Susan's going to go into more detail later on in our presentation about the reports and how to view them. Then we have our tools. We have a lot of tools, and these tools are to help the clinic track and manage your data submission, as well as identify any data issues and addressing how to, fix those issues. So these are what these tools are to help you do. Then we have a member directory, and this member directory lists all of our CPQCC member hospitals. One side, you have the NICU contacts, and then you have the HRIF contacts on the right. Of course, if a site does not have an HRIF clinic, they will not have any information listed there for like the coordinator, for instance, but there should be information up here so you know exactly who is providing, what center or which hospital is providing the follow-up care for the center that you're looking at. One thing that I'm very proud of is our map. So we have a map to kind of indicate where all of the HRIF clinics or even our HRIF satellites are located, similar to a Google's map. You can click and hover and, zoom in, zoom out. This legend is clickable as well. So if you wanted to know what are the other CCS NICUs in the state or what are the non-CCS NICUs, you can click to showcase where those markers, where those hospitals are located. We also have a locate field. So you have the option of typing in an address, a city, a county, for instance. You hit locate, and then what's going to happen is it's going to, of course, zoom in on that location and then identify the 3 closest HRIF clinics based on the location that you've entered. And then last but not least, you have our help manual, our online manual. So anything, data definitions for any of the forms, if you had any questions about what we're asking you to collect, we have an outline description of the dashboard, as well as the tools and reports. Now to kind of talk about how to use the Find Patient and the case history page. So as stated before, you have, if you know the HRIF ID number, you can search by using the search field up at the top, or you can click on Find Patient, which opens up the patient search. Here, and just to point out that this patient search is exactly similar to the referral patient search. You have the same items available to you to use to search for a patient. You can use any of these fields. I just recommend that you use probably one. Sometimes individuals try to put in everything. And if you misspell the name, you put in an A instead of an E, for instance, it may not find the patient. So it has to match exactly how it was submitted. There are also more options here. So if any of these don't, fancy you in any way, you can use any of these other options to search for a record. The other thing that's nice is that if you don't put in anything and you just want to be able to find all patients that you've ever registered, you can just click the search button. When you click the search button, it opens up however many, depending on your search criteria, of course, how many patients were found. One new feature that we added here is now you can click on this little icon and you can export, copy, or print this list. So you have a reference. Again, a lot of you are familiar. You can sort by any of these columns. And then, of course, for those of you who are new to the system, in order for you to review and look at a record, you click on the HRIF ID number to open up the case history. In the case history, you get a general banner with the information, HRIF ID number and the name and date of birth, so you know who you're looking at. And then within the case history, you have all of the forms that were attached to that patient and other, like, and who created them and the last time that they were updated. One report is actually available to you, and that's down here at the bottom, the Patient Data Quality Self-Audit Report. And this report gives you a nice little printout, or I shouldn't say a printout, but a screenshot or a new window that showcases everything that was submitted. So all of these forms, whatever was captured in the standard visit form, whatever was captured on the CNSD form, it outlines it in the Patient Data Audit Report. To add a new form to this case, you click on the new form drop down here, and you can add the standard visit, additional visit, or client not seen form. One thing I wanted to point out that we've added new, and I'm just going to show you on the standard visit form, for instance, when you click on that to add a new standard visit form, I want you to notice now that there's the case history, and then there's the little clipboard. This little clipboard is the patient report that I just showed you. So now on every single form, you can always reference that to kind of see, oh, let me pull up this report. Let me see what the current recommendations were. And so you can see for this particular case, the current recommendations were the baby was referred for a medical therapy program, as well as being referred for audiology. So this is just a quick reference for you to kind of like check in, oh, did the baby get that service? And, of course, if they didn't, then you reiterate to try to help the family to make those referrals appropriate. Now to go over one of my babies, this is like number 5 for me, I guess, is the clinic dashboard. So the clinic dashboard, I want to point out that at the very top, it only shows active birth years. So right now you are able to see 2018 and 2020 records. And then of course, like some of you guys are familiar, there's a lot of hover and discover features within this dashboard. Point out there are 4 notice boxes at the very top, and then you have the 3 charts down at the bottom. Each notice box, as you can see, has a view details down at the bottom. And if you click on the view details, it opens up the system tool that is associated with addressing that issue. So for instance, if you clicked on the view details for error for these 10 error cases, it's going to open up the error and warning report and list out those 10 cases and kind of tell you what you need to do to fix those issues. If you click on the view details for the current registration, it actually opens up a pie chart. And here it just gives you a general visual of, out of your 431 cases, how many of them are still open? How many have graduated? And so you can hover and see what those totals and what those percentages are, by just looking at that information. The other thing I want to point out is that if you actually click on the title of the chart or the title of the notice box, for instance, it will actually open up the description. So that way you can always, if you're not familiar what it is that we're trying to show you, you can kind of then dive in a little bit deeper and say, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. So now I want to kind of go over a little bit in depth of how you can utilize these charts or what it is that we're trying to show you in these charts. So you'll see in this expected cases by adjusted age, you'll see the total expected cases is 425, which is different than what you saw for total registration. The reason is because we exclude patients that have expired or moved out of state or country because we're not expecting them to be seen. And so now what you see is in this pie in the middle, the gray, we're looking at the volume of expected patient cases to be seen, right, in your clinic, and we group them by their current adjusted age. So here you have your population that's between 2 to 11 months, 12 to 17 months, and then 18 to 36 months. You can hover over those sections to see how many cases are we talking about and the percentage of those patients that are between 2 to 11 months of age. The second ring, or I guess you could call this the first ring, is now looking of those patients, how many of them were seen, which is indicated in the teal color, and then how many were expected but not seen, indicated in the red, or if they were closed, they're indicated in the darker red. So they were expected, not seen, but now you've closed them out. You can also hover over these sections as well to see how many cases we're talking about. One nice thing that we did with the expected not seen cases is that you can hover over that, and if you click on it, it opens up a table. And this way you are able to see, okay, out of those cases that are expected, how old are they? So you can adjust, change their adjusted age sorting here. And then to kind of figure out, okay, well, are they scheduled to come in, like checking your EMR? Maybe they were seen, but their standard visit form just wasn't submitted in the system. So there's a couple of things that you can use this table for. The other thing I want to point out is that this can be exported as well. So you can copy this, print this, export it, and then, run your own internal checks and manage, tracking and management to figure out what's going on with that population. The other thing that we added it was earlier this year, so some of you may not even be aware of it, is that now you can even do another click on the not seen but closed cases, and it also generates the table here as well. We actually did this change because when I did a review earlier this year, someone was like, well, I want to know why we're closing these kids early. And so this is just an easy way for you to then do a deeper dive to figure out why those kids were closed. So that's how you can kind of interpret this, at least the second ring, and how that works. And then if you're wondering what this last ring is for, so this outer ring is looking at, of those that were seen, what were they seen for? So you have these different shades of teal, which is indicating by, SV1, for instance. You have your SV2s and how many were seen for SV3. And just to kind of point out, I like to do this when I do my one-on-ones, is that primarily what you want to see, especially for like this 18 to 36 months, you want to see more of this lighter teal proportion. Because what that's pretty much saying is that, at least for this particular site, a lot of their patients who are currently at that 18 to 36 months, they are being seen later. So they have like their first visit and their second visits being captured at that 18 to 36 months. Now to talk about the activity by month, how you can use this. Now, this is just a nice way for you to see monthly what is going on. What are you doing? What's coming in? What are the new registrations? New referrals, how many patients are being graduated. So you can kind of see your activity. You can click and hover over these things as well to get more detail. You can even hide some of the options down below if you're really just interested in seeing, I want to just know how many kids are transferring in, how many are transferring out. You can hide these other options and be able to really hone in on that group. The last chart that's available is the visits. So you are able to see how many visits are being conducted on a monthly basis. So that's what you're looking at right now. Or if you clicked on by year, you're able to see it by year. I'm going to go back to by month because I like this one. And just to kind of highlight how you interpret this report or how you read it, at the very bottom, which is the x-axis, it displays the months. And then on the y-axis on the left side, it is actually showing the number of visits. So that's what this count is here. The number of visits are broken up by additional visits are displayed in orange. Purple are your standard visit number ones, teal is standard visit number 2, and then yellow is standard visit number 3s. And then on the other y-axis, on the right side, it's looking at the total number of visits, and that is represented by the gray bar. You can, of course, hover and discover here if you want to get a little bit more information about how many, standard visits were done in a specific month. You can also click on the bars themselves to see your total visits for that month. Now, something new that a lot of you guys have been waiting on is we are now going to be rolling out the referral registration electronic data submission, or better yet known as RREDS. You gotta love our acronyms. So launching in January, you will now, when you log in, you will have the ability to register multiple records. So you don't have to do individual registration forms. This will be available under the user icon. There will be a new button called EDS Upload. And this, I'm just kind of giving you a visual. We're still working out the kinks and stuff, but I'm just giving you a visual of what it's going to look like or what you can expect. So you have your registration electronic data submission window that you open up. And then this is where you're browsing to find the file, of course, on your system that you're going to be uploading into the system. I'm pretending that I've uploaded a file, and this is just giving you a visual of what it will look like. So you have some variables here, coming from the file. And then if there's any issues with the file itself or one of the records within the file, it will display those issues. Of course, there are required values, like for the referral registration form. So if you're missing any of those items, it will flag you and identify what those missing requirements are. There is a submit column. So if there are no problems, they will automatically check off and they're ready to be submitted. And then you have this action column. So for instance, like if it's a duplicate and you're like, oh yeah, that is a duplicate, we did that one already, you can then remove that by deleting the case. Or if, for instance, if you look at this item, row ID 13, it's missing the NICU record ID when it's missing the caregiver language at home. If you click on review, it will open up that referral registration form and allow you to make those corrections, and then you can upload that file. This is just what it looks like once you upload it. You'll get this green box that'll tell you these are the HRIF ID numbers that have been uploaded. And then this is just letting you know where you'll be able to find those uploaded records. So of course, if you are a referral user, you can search for those patients and they can be found in your referral patient search. And then if as a registration or data user, they'll be available in the find patient search field. Just want to point out that there are going to be required fields that you guys are all aware of, right, for the referral registration form, but there are 3 additional ones, and that is a row ID, submit type. So submit type is indicating what type of user interface you have, right? So we make sure that we code the file correctly. And then the HRIF clinic. So that's letting us know where this kid is going to be seen for follow-up. There will be rules. So I am working on and finalizing the EDS materials. They will be made available hopefully by December. I'm shooting for November, but at the latest December. There will be instructions, specifications. There will be a skeleton file that you can use as a template. Like again, there will be rules, and that will be all outlined in the instructions. And of course, we will be testing this out as we go. Of course, right now I'm the only one testing it, so it's kind of working for me. But of course, when you launch things like this, you end up having bugs. So we will work together to make this a smooth process. Again, this will be available January 2022. So look forward to this new addition. Now to talk about data finalization. Let me see, how am I doing on my time? I gotta get through this. Okay, so for 2021, here's just a summary of our closeout. And I really just wanna highlight that everyone did really well. Item number 5 and item number 6 that I kind of highlighted here, we just gotta work on this, and I'm gonna show you exactly what it is that you need to do to meet those deliverables for our 2022 closeout. Here is just a list of the member awards that we launched this year, that we always have on an annual basis. And then this is just congratulating all of our award winners that we had this past year. So we had 36 superstar winners, 16 follow-up rate award winners, and then 27 crown award winners. And so I just want to congratulate all of you. Thank you for all of the hard work, dedication, everything that you guys put through to meet these deliverables and these deadlines. And of course, hope you are clapping this out and patting yourself on the back. good work. So here are our Superstar Award winners. I'm going to go through, these are our follow-up award winners, as well as our Crown Award winners. So I'm going to kind of go through this because we have a lot to kind of cover today, and I'm so sorry I'm kind of behind schedule here. If you have not seen your certificate, please visit our website. You can go on here, download the certificate, post it, print it, showcase it, hashtag award, send it anywhere. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone and their hard work. Here's a screenshot of the 2022 data finalization schedule. You have our awards that are highlighted in yellow when those are given out. And then in purple and gray is where we have our deadlines, June 1st, June 17th, and July 1st. Here's the closeout checklist online. This is just letting you know if you complete items 1 through 4 by May 1st, then you are awarded the Superstar Award. Of course, that deadline is actually June 1st. You have item number 5, which is the CCS report, which is June 17th. And then item 6 and 7 is July 1st. If you complete all items 1 through 7 by the deadline, you are awarded the Crown Award. Now, to highlight the ones that I think we could do better at meeting these deadlines is the item number 5, which is confirming your CCS report. So effective on June 2nd, that report will be made available to you. And what you have to do is actually go into that report and sign off and hit the confirm button. That will then check that off and complete it on your closeout checklist. Item number 6 is registering infants born in 2021. This one must be manually checked by someone in your clinic. So you have to log in, go to the closeout checklist, and actually check this off and then hit the submit button. And as long as you do that before July 1st, you're good to go. There is a report that you can also have access to view. This is the HRIF NICU match report. So if you don't have access to this, please submit a help desk ticket, and then I can requesting access, and I can grant that access to you. So then you can have kind of like a cheat sheet from your NICU to make sure that you've identified all patients that meet eligibility for HRIF. This is just showing you that on our data resources page, we have all of the data finalization resources available to you, and all the guidelines and quick reference sheet, as well as the schedule that I just showed you. And then our famous help desk. So you have our help desk at cpqcc.help.org, as well as I wanted to point out, you don't even have to go to cpqcchelp.org. You can click on the help desk widget, which is embedded in the HRIF reporting system, and you can submit your tickets right here directly to me. Now I'm going to turn this over to Susan so she can talk about database reports. Can I just stop sharing?
You're still sharing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, now I gotta try to share. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so I know we're getting short of time, but I think it's really important to recognize all of the features that the dashboard has and all of the resources that Erica went through, because it really, there's so much information that, similar to the database reports that I'll go through fairly quickly, I think, you know, none of us have a lot of time, but really the only way to super get familiar with it is kind of play with it. And there's a lot of information in the tools that are part of the dashboard and the other resources that really can support your discussions with your institution about all that you're doing and all of the efforts that you're making. And also in terms of sharing information with your NICU and having that conversation, which I think also is a good launch point to talk about the database reports. There is just a lot of rich information within the HRIF reporting system writ large, the resources, the dashboard, and the reports. And we just want to highlight for you, again, you have to have access to get access to these reports, but there are many. So once you sign on, and if you click on reports, you'll see that there are many report options that you can look at. And a lot of HRIF teams, start off by sort of looking at the HRIF reports, which within the HRIF reports have many options embedded in that. And this is what kind of the landing pad will look like when you launch HRIF reports. And you will have the option to select your HRIF program or all California programs. You will be able to select the discharging NICU. So if you wanted to narrow down on just outcomes from a particular discharging NICU, or you can select all for all NICUs that are discharging and referring to you. You will have a birth year filter as well, but I really want to highlight this custom birth year filter. So a lot of sites have said, well, I don't want to just know what happened in that birth year, but I want to know, of the group born between 2012 and 2017. And you can do that with that custom birth year. Similarly, for gestational age or birth weight, you can do a custom birth weight or gestational age. We have some options for the filter, but you can put in your own. So if you want to know certain outcomes or resource needs or service needs for patients who are born 23 to 27 weeks, you can do that with this filter. Also, you can choose a qualifying condition, or you can just say all. In terms of the HRIF report, you can ask for the filter by, just looking at the registration summary report, or by core visits, or by the age at the time of the visit. And this is like maybe my favorite filter, because it really demonstrates the incredibly deep and robust information that all of you participate in making sure is available about your patients. And this is from a single site perspective, really gives you a lot of information about what kinds of maybe challenges your patients have, or maybe areas that you're doing really great in compared to the state, or that really highlight the fact that you are needing to work much harder in some areas, or maybe need some additional resources. And that's kind of what I want to go through with you a little bit. So this is showing you an example of a site that is, I blocked out the name of the site, but this is for a first visit for infants that are less than 1,500 grams for a particular birth weight. And you can look here, this is just for the follow-up section of the and disposition section of the HRIF summary report follow-up status. And you can see that this site here is actually doing very well, having seen almost 96% of their cases for this birth year. And that is compared to an overall of 77% for that particular birth year for this birth weight less than 1,500 grams. And also here, just showing you that this is your site. This is all HRIF clinics, both the overall follow-up rate in this case, as well as the median for all sites and the lower and upper quartile. And so this site is even doing better than the upper quartile, which is shown by this little cartoon here with the red dot indicating this particular site. So this is a different HRIF site. And you can see, again, the birth year is 2017. These are infants whose birth weight was less than or equal to 1,500 grams. And you see that the seen cases in this case is about 87%. And again, in comparison to the other sites in California, it's a little higher than the 77%, but it's right around the median for the sites. Now, I also want to kind of show you some options for pop-out windows. So let's say you wanted to say, well, let me look at the patients who were not seen, but they were expected. So in other words, they hadn't moved out of the state, they hadn't been closed for some other reason. And I've blocked out the ID and the discharging NICU, but you will be able to see this table, similar to the pop-out tables that Erica showed you as well. And you'll also be able to export it, etc. So this is one of the features. Anywhere where there's this blue, we'll have a live pop-out window. So now we're going on to another of that that very long list of HRIF summary reports. And this is language assistance and insurance. And again, this is, for a particular birth year, less than 1,500 grams. And you can see here that for this particular site, only about 6% of their follow-up at the first visit required an interpreter. And this is, in comparison to, again, all HRIF clinics, which is about similar in this particular case. However, if you look at the insurance breakdown, you see that this particular site has nearly 90% commercial HMO. And you can see here that is very different for the rest of the state. Now, if you look, let's say you're a very different HRIF clinic. Well, this particular HRIF clinic is using an interpreter almost for 40% of their follow-up for the first visit. And this would be something that was quite different from the rest of the state. So this is something that you as an HRIF visit clinic might point to in your institution as really being a resource need for your patients and families for HRIF. Similarly, insurance, as you see in this, the combination of CCS and Medi-Cal is more than 3/4 of the patients. And this is quite different from the rest of the state. So again, these are opportunities for you to sort of recognize where you might be different from the state and be able to make the case to your institution, and also to be able to share with your institution the kind of population that you're caring for and what kinds of resources might help you to do that better. This is a report for interval hospitalizations and surgeries. And again, I'm using this custom birth year feature just to give us a little bit of a different picture. And this I'm really pointing out to you as a way to share with your NICU teams. Oftentimes NICU teams are most focused on short-term outcomes, but being able to talk to their patients and your patients about kind of for your institution, what does that look like when you go home, and what kinds of services might be required. In this particular case, we see that again, this is the first visit, hospitalization since discharge for this particular site, about 16% of the cases that they've seen by the time of their first visit have required a hospitalization in that interim period, and about a little bit less than 10% required surgery since discharge. And you can see for your own site, both the reasons for hospitalization and for surgery, and also in comparison to other sites. So again, this is really, I think, an important aspect of what you can do together with your NICU, you actually as the high-risk infant follow-up team, educating your NICU teams about other information they may need to know about what happens after going home. We also want to kind of point out some of these really other great reports that you may not look at, but may give you an idea of sort of what your profile looks like compared to others and some other features. So this program profile gives you a selection of either medical eligibility profile or birth weight and gestational age profile, or languages and insurance. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. My picture looks a little bit different from yours. So this is a little bit of a kludgy way to show you, but you will be able to see your site, which is blocked out here. And this is just showing you in comparison to all HRIF clinics, what this site looks like in terms of the makeup of their clinic participants. And in some cases, this is quite different. There may be, there are some sites that have very low birth weight or very preterm children, but a very high proportion of children who are term, very complex patients. So this is showing you languages and insurance. And again, this is just showing you another opportunity to kind of highlight how your program may be very different from other programs. This particular group has 46.8% with a primary language spoken at home as Spanish. And again, has a sort of a different mix of commercial HMO and commercial PPO than other sites. So again, a really important insight about your own clinic and your own population compared to others that may be helpful to share with your institution and with your NICU. We also love the service referrals report. You can get this same information actually by drilling down on some of the reports that I showed you before within HRIF. But we feel this is such an important feature and something that you could really get your hands on quickly that we sort of broke this out as a separate report. So again, you can filter by standard visit, and also by the other options that you see here with the HRIF program. You can filter by all or yours and birth year, et cetera. All of those are similar. So this is, we're just going to show an example of 2014 to 2016 birth year, less than 1,500 grams, less than or equal to 1,500 grams. And this is core visit 1. And this is how it looks. It shows you by year and tells you this first part of the report shows you the medical services that are basically received. So walking in the door, this child has these children have these medical services. And we also have a group summary. So again, for the first visit, walking in the door for this particular eligibility that you chose, how many have received more than 1 to 2 or 3 or more. But then also we show you the services that are referred at the time of visit. So again, getting to things that you are doing, and really, if not for you, there would have been potentially a delay. And so even at this first visit for 2016, this particular site is referring patients to at least one medical service that they didn't have before for 17% of their patients. For special services, it's even more. So this is showing you again, services that are received at the time, that are actually in place when they come to the visit. And you can see that there are many that don't have any special services, but about a quarter to a third have at least one special service. But if you look at the special services that are referred at the time of visit, again, we can see that what your HRIF programs are doing is really a lot of work. You are referring to at least one, this particular site, up to 40% of cases. So this is really, very important information. Again, information that really demonstrates how valuable the work that you're doing is and information that can be shared with your institution. The CCS annual report, it can also be selected. And as you probably know, this shows information from one single birth year across all core visits. There are a number of filters that can select this way as well, but these are available for core visits. And again, this is one of the ways that we share this information with the state. So very quickly, you saw there's something called a NICU summary report too, and many people, well, what's that one for? And I really, both Eric and I really try to highlight this every single time we talk, because this summary report was launched exactly at the same time that we launched the program, because we really wanted the NICU teams to be involved at looking at these kinds of outcomes. And basically every single report is exactly the same, except that instead of the HRIF clinic, it's the NICU hospital. And instead of referring NICU, it is inborn or outborn for the filter, but they can see everything that basically touched their NICU. And so, we find that this is very important. This can actually help to stimulate conversation between you both. And so this is the very last poll. And then I think we're actually going to probably move on very quickly because we're already at 1:30. we really do feel, and I feel this strongly, that meeting with your NICU teams and sharing HRIF data, either it be from your perspective or from the NICU summary report, can really invigorate collaboration. And many sites have actually done joint PI, QI projects based on this information. So I am going to ask the question with my final poll. Does your clinic have regular meetings with the NICU team to discuss CPQCC, NICU, and HRIF data, or to discuss operational issues, and especially issues like what we just talked about, anything from the dashboard, anything from the reports, any of this information about even short-term post-discharge outcomes. And I see that we're about a quarter of you have responded. We're going to try to cut this off pretty soon. So you get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're ending the poll. And this is, unfortunately, I can see Erica's face, so horrified. Unfortunately, this is what we thought was happening because, and it's not just you guys. I mean, believe me, we're not saying it's all on you. We really want the NICU team to be, involved in what's going on with your team and to really understand what's happening. So I just want to say again, I think that NICU team leaders really, not only can they, because we built this into the system, but they should gain access for their NICU summary reports. And we are asking you to help spread the word. They can also submit a help ticket. They can email me directly. I can put them in touch with Erica. We can walk them through the process, but we really want them to be involved. This is a high-level selected view of some of the recent projects that we've completed, but I do want to just highlight that we're going to be looking at disparities in telehealth access and telehealth use. And also, again, the COVID family impact study, some of you may be involved in that and may have already seen about that in the research meeting that we had. So Erica, maybe I should just stop here because we were afraid that we were going to have too much. I mean, we could have gone on for another hour. So we cut, let me tell you guys, we cut. So, so with that, I think we try to answer in real time many of these questions. I think Nicole's question is unanswered. Is there a way to differentiate our medical CCS patients and our whole child population? And I think that's a great question that we are going to need to drill down on a little bit, because as you know, sort of the rollout of whole child has been different across the state. And I think it'd be, great for us to discuss that with our CCS partners as well. It looks like, I hope everybody has been able to ask questions, but I do want to just say that we are very available to answer questions. There are a couple that there's at least one other that I'm going to circle back with Maria Yoxin about, having to do with different kinds of eligibility questions. Since we are now literally 1 minute from the end of our time, I think we are just going to fast forward to the closing slides. And Rebecca, I think I'm going to share that and certainly ask you to just go through those last few slides. I will forward that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Erica. What a fantastic presentation, just packed with information. So just to remind everyone, you can always ask for more help if you need it at cpqcchelp.org. There is a link to this at the top of the regular CPQCC website, the same place you can go to log into the HRIF reporting system. In the request, make sure to indicate what your data role is, whether you are HRIF staff or you are a referring CCS NICU. This is if you're having any questions, any issues with the reports, the application, anything to do with what you're seeing in the HRIF system. Next slide, please. However, if you have questions about state policy, procedures, anything like that, how you become a CCS provider, service, SARs, insurance billing, the whole child model, anything like that, Maria Yaxon is our extremely important contact at California Department of Healthcare Services, DHCS, and she is the person that you contact for anything having to do with, again, state policy, state procedures, anything like that goes to Maria. Anything to do with the application or logging in goes to Erica at the usual help desk site. Next slide. Just a reminder, you will be receiving an email very soon with an evaluation survey, which is, once you fill that out, you are eligible for the CEUs. We have accumulated them, and they are going to be distributed after this session has completed for all of the sessions. Just a note, the webinar recording and slides are going to be posted on our website. They're available for anybody who would like to look at them. However, you're not eligible for CEUs if you are viewing the recording, only if you were able to attend the live session. So keep a lookout for the evaluation survey. The slides and webinar recording will be attached, and you can share those as you will. So thank you again to Susan and to Erica for their fantastic job. Thank you, Falani, for joining us today and being a great backup host. And thank you especially to all of you for attending today. We were so glad to see your names. I wish one of these days soon we're going to be able to see your faces. And I want to just let Susan and Erica also say their goodbyes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really
I wish I
appreciate
could
the
see
time.
all of you, but
Me too.
right now we're just
Thanks,
virtual.
everyone.
Thank you.